Brittany Griner is a former #1 overall pick, a WNBA champion, a 7-time WNBA All-Star, and an individual that might never play basketball ever again.
WNBA star Brittany Griner is being detained in Moscow as tensions ratchet up between Russia and the U.S. over the invasion of Ukraine. Griner was arrested on drug charges a month ago, but the news only made public over the weekend.
On February 17, 2022, on a cold Moscow evening with temperatures bone-chillingly low around -6°C, while departing her commercial flight to Russia, Brittany Griner was arrested and detained for drug charges. For the past 3 months, Griner has been stuck in a cell with a bed too small for her 6'9" frame, and her court hearing was just set back a whole another month. With treatment like this, you would assume that the drugs that Brittany Griner was carrying must have been pretty hardcore. But to tell you the truth, the substance the police found is actually legal in the United States. But hold on, why was Brittany Griner ever in Russia to begin with? What were the drugs that she was carrying? How much did she have to be held this long? How many years, yes, years, is she possibly getting sentenced to? But maybe most importantly, how long until Brittany Griner can return to the United States and dominate the WNBA like she has for nearly the past decade? Before we get to the content, I'm gonna hit you with a disclaimer. This video is going to get demonetized because it's a very controversial issue. And when that happens, YouTube won't push this video out to a larger audience because it can't make money off of it. You can counteract that by leaving a like on this video, subscribing, and turning on our notifications to help the channel grow. And now that we got all that out of the way, cue the intro. This video is sponsored by DraftKings. Hoops fans, the latest offer from DraftKings is just way too good to pass up. New customers could bet $5, and if they win, they could turn that $5 into $150 worth of free bets. It's not often where you get 30-to-1 odds on any basketball team to win their next playoff game, and that's some fantastic value. I'm sure we could all agree that these games are significantly more enjoyable when there is the prospect of potentially making money watching something that you love. And there's no better way to maximize your earnings than with DraftKings same-game parlays. DraftKings Sportsbook customers can also bet on the NBA with same-game parlays, which combines multiple bets from the same game for an even bigger payout. And right now, when you download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use my promo code TheFlightMike, you can bet $5 and win $150 worth of free bets. That's promo code TheFlightMike at DraftKings Sportsbook. And thank you, DraftKings, for the sponsorship. Brittany Griner was the #1 overall pick in the 2013 WNBA draft, and in her 9 seasons has made 2 WNBA finals, winning 1, and has made the All-Star team 7 times, with her last season being her best, averaging 20 points per game with 10 rebounds to boot. Griner is a cornerstone for the Phoenix Mercury and is one of the best players in her respective sport. So why was she in Russia? Well, unlike NBA players, WNBA athletes don't exactly get rich quick. And also, unlike most NBA athletes, they actually have to play overseas in order to make a decent living. But not only did players make good money when they do travel overseas, they are also treated like professional basketball players for what was probably the first time in their lives. Let me explain. In the WNBA, players aren't really treated that well, to put it lightly. Unlike their NBA counterparts, WNBA players are required to play all 4 years in college before becoming WNBA eligible. WNBA players also do not get chartered flights. That's right, professional WNBA players fly commercially to and from games and have to suffer through layovers that can sometimes take up to hours. Jasmine Thomas, a guard for the Connecticut Sun, once said, "We wish we could charter a flight." That's something that's been in the conversation for years, and being able to do that, especially during the playoffs. But because we can't, we just gotta take it. Both teams are going to go through similar things, so it's not something that you can really complain about. Now, at the same time, this isn't a a video that's advocating for WNBA players to get paid more, because at the same time, the NBA subsidizes the WNBA and takes a $10 million yearly loss for every WNBA season that is played. Just plain and simple, the WNBA isn't profitable. It's a horrible situation all around. But aside from the benefits, Brittany Griner plays for a Russian basketball team in the Russian Premier League and currently makes around $1 million a season, compared to her contract in the WNBA that she signed, which is worth $220,000 a season. Now at this point, which one would you expect anyone to choose? Griner has also won a championship in the Russian Premier League, so not only is she making more money, enjoying the benefits more, but she's also a 2-league champion. Now, Griner isn't the only WNBA athlete who plays overseas. In fact, more specifically, her own teammate on the Phoenix Mercury and WNBA legend Diana Taurasi plays on the same exact team as Griner in Russia, and is teammates with her on a team called UMMC Ekaterinburg. I probably butchered that, didn't I? So let's get this straight. Griner didn't just plan a trip to Russia during a conflict negligently like some are saying, and she definitely didn't make the decision recently. Griner has been playing overseas for years now, simply because she had the opportunity to make more money, and why not? Why not go make more money somewhere else if a team is willing to spend the money on your physical talents? NBA players do it, NFL players do it, and you can bet your money that MLB players certainly do it as well. So what went wrong? Griner had the money, she was winning championships, and honestly probably had a bigger fan base in Russia while dominating. Well, on February 17th, 2022, while flying into Moscow to play for her Russian Premier League team, Brittany Griner stepped off the plane, and while waiting in line, her bag was sniffed by a dog and was detained. Soon after, Brittany Griner would be arrested, and for the past 3 months has been sleeping in beds the Russian authorities have admitted are too small for her nearly 7-foot frame. The only objective problem has turned out to be the basketball player's height. The beds in the cells are clearly intended for a person of lesser height. Now, you might be wondering at this point, what exactly did they find in her luggage, and how much of it did they find? I mean, they essentially have locked this high-profile athlete up for what will end up being 4 months without a proper trial. And I've said that her actions are not up for interpretation, but essentially are criminal. Well, what the drug-sniffing dog ended up smelling was a lonely THC vape cartridge that didn't even have a speck of physical cannabis on it, or in the bag at all. That's right, just her own personal vape cartridge. No actual devil's lettuce. Not an insane amount of cartridges, no residue left over, nothing like that. Literally just her personal vape cartridges. In the US, the worst a TSA agent would do is take it away from you and let you be on your merry way. But not in Russia. It would make sense that this wouldn't have been the first time that Griner has brought over some sort of vape. In fact, it's legal not only in most states in the United States, but it's also legal in Arizona, the state the Phoenix Mercury currently reside in. Griner has made the trip to Russia for literally years now. This probably isn't the first time she's brought over some sort of THC-related substance to help her recover. Yes, I said recover. Many athletes from the MLB to NHL to NBA to even recently the NFL who have been retired have admitted to not only smoking the devil's lettuce to recover from games that in some cases cause irreversible physical ailments, but specifically Percy Harvin admitted to playing every single game of his career high in order to quell his anxiety on the field. Maybe that's why he was so fast on the turf. Anyway, what I'm saying is that it's normal for athletes to use these type of things in order to recover from the physically demanding sports that they play, and it probably wasn't the first time she's brought a vape cartridge into Russia. So just why is Russia still holding her over something so small? What has the WNBA said? What charges are they trying to give her in order to possibly convict her for up to 10 years in prison? Does this have anything going on with the current conflict that Russia is waging? But maybe most importantly is what is happening in order to make sure that Griner returns home unscathed. While detained in Russia, the main charge the Russian government is trying to give to Griner is a large-scale transportation of drugs, an offense that can carry a sentence of up to 10 years behind bars in Russia. Yes, that's right, a large-scale transportation of drugs. Well, honestly, the first thing I'd like to ask is, what about a vape cartridge is large-scale in nature? Anyway, the issue isn't whether or not she will be charged with something, it's about how long her sentence for said charge will be. And 10 years seems to be extraordinary when you consider what she had in her luggage. The Phoenix Mercury, Griner's WNBA team, issued a statement saying, "We are aware of and are closely monitoring the situation with Brittany Griner in Russia. We remain in constant contact with her family, her representation, the WNBA, and the NBA. We love and support Brittany, and at this time, our main concern is her safety, physical and mental health, and her safe return home." And the WNBA Players Association, in a long statement, read that we are aware of the situation in Russia concerning one of our members, Brittany Griner. Our utmost concern is BG's safety and well-being. Since the detainment of Griner, her trial has been pushed back not once, but now 2 times. Griner's arrest came at an interesting time, as it was literally days before Russia's invasion of its neighbor. And some US politicians even speculate that she could be leveraged for Russia in order for the United States to lessen its sanctions. Yes, that's right. A basketball superstar, someone whose athletics people enjoy across the planet in multiple continents, is currently being used as a bargaining chip in an international conflict. On May 5th, just days before Russia would extend Brittany Griner's hearing for a second consecutive time, the United States declared Brittany Griner as quote-unquote wrongfully detained. And since then, I've been making more considerable attempts in order to get her back to the United States. The average wrongful detainment of someone overseas usually takes 4 years or so to resolve. However, considering Griner's status as a basketball star not only in the United States, but in Russia as well, how come she's not being treated with higher regards? Well, to be honest, she is. Apart from the beds not being large enough as aforementioned, a US diplomat sent over to Russia to check on the welfare of Brittany Griner said that she's actually in good condition. Sure, jail in general isn't a good living environment, but when you consider the normal prisons cannabis users in Russia endure, you might just make the assumption that Griner is being treated especially well so as to not anger her or cause some sort of outrage. This would help the argument that Griner is possibly being held as leverage for some sort of political strategy since she isn't hurt, and they are keeping her in a good living environment. William Bartlett, an associate professor at Melbourne Law School, who is also an expert on Russian politics, said that Griner is in more danger now than she would have been pre-invasion. These types of cases are often resolved through negotiations, but Bartlett also pointed out that there is far less of a US consular presence in Russia right now to help with Brittany's case. However, when the professor was asked about the possibility of Brittany being released in order to lessen sanctions like Russia wants, he said maybe the US has someone in custody who they could exchange, but the sanctions and aid to Ukraine will not be lessened in order to get her out. The fact of the matter is there is no actual way of knowing if Russia is detaining her for political reasons or if she was just coincidentally just really unlucky this one time. A few days before one of the largest global affairs in human history, Congresswoman Sheila Jackson states that Brittany Griner is a United States citizen. She was a guest in Russia and I will be demanding her release. She further went on to justify this by saying anyone that is killing and attacking and destroying Ukraine, a neighboring country that is not bothering them, has no right to hold Miss Griner, period. For now, Brittany Griner will be in jail until June 19th, where she will have her trial, assuming they don't extend another month for what would be now the 3rd time in a row. There are a few ways this could end with Griner, and unfortunately none of them end in a month or two with her playing in the WNBA playoffs. Or who knows, maybe she is. Griner, if a political pawn, will probably be imprisoned until the end of the global conflict, meaning at now age 31 she would probably miss the rest of her competitive basketball days. Or if Griner is simply the most unlucky person on the planet and just so happened to be arrested before an invasion, she probably will still spend a considerable amount of time overseas simply because that is how long wrongful detainments typically work. Either way, Griner will be missing the latter half of her WNBA career, and after losing in the 2021 WNBA finals, she will unfortunately never get the chance to get the revenge she deserves. But maybe, just maybe, Griner's notoriety will be enough for Russia to expedite not only her trial, but her plane back to the United States in time for her to become a 2-time WNBA champion. But after all this, a few questions still remain. What does this mean for the WNBA? What does this mean for countless WNBA stars who currently have contracts overseas? Brittany Griner's trial has now been pushed back not once, but now twice, and there is no reason to expect it to not be pushed back again. The WNBA, which started in early May, now has Griner's initial BG and her number 42 courtside at every game this season. As of recently, the United States has finally declared her wrongfully detained, and as a result are increasing efforts to try to get the former WNBA champion back in Phoenix. However, However, what does this mean for other WNBA players? Well, as I mentioned prior, Griner isn't the only player who plays overseas. In fact, it's not just a handful of players at all. Many WNBA players play overseas in order to not just make good money like I said prior, but just to survive. The base salary for anyone drafted number 1 to number 5 in the WNBA is just under $73,000. And anyone drafted below number 5 gets under $70,000, and that number just gets lower and lower until undrafted rookies and late round picks are just getting $60,000 a season. Now look, considering how the WNBA is just a few months out of the year, that's not bad money at all whatsoever, especially for a sport that isn't generating a significant amount of interest. But when you take into consideration that these WNBA athletes don't have their bodies essentially wired up and cared for by their teams like NBA athletes do, you realize they spend a majority of their money just making sure that their body can physically perform. Now, after the arrest of Griner and her detainment possibly ending in a 10-year prison sentence, many players are in a dilemma. Should athletes continue to make good money while also risking their freedom at the cost of the slightest mistake, or should they just stay back home and make pennies on the dollar compared to their contracts overseas? As of now, Brittany Griner is still detained, and although in good condition, is eager to get home.